Hey, my name is Tyler Roth. I'm the owner of Gorge Tree Surgeon out in Hood River, Oregon, and I'm also on the board of directors for Oregon Community Trees, which is a nonprofit that focuses on education, outreach, and advocacy for Oregon communities' urban forestry programs. Today we just wanted to do a quick video about managing mature trees in the urban forest. So today we have these 3 big leaf maple trees that we're going to be working on. And when it comes to managing mature trees, we need to think about where they're at in their life cycle. So trees are almost like human beings, where, you know, when they're saplings or young trees, or humans as babies, they grow very fast and have a lot of energy and vigor to them. And then once as a human, you know, reaches about 35 years in age, we start to kind of taper off, slow down in our vigor and our growth and things like that. And then the trees will have a somewhat long, slow decline in vigor in age, much like humans would have when we get elderly. So they're very similar. Just think of them in respect to our age and how the trees are. So these big leaf maples, I would think they're probably 80 to 90 years old, maybe a little bit older. The tree on the right is looking fine, and we also need to remember, if the tree does not have a target, we don't really need to be as concerned. This does have the parking spaces there. This tree in the middle does have one very large deadwood piece up in the upper canopy, which we will be removing, which is where the rope goes through. And there's also a squirrel nest at the base of that, so we're going to address that accordingly and try and save them some habitat for wildlife. But this tree on the house side over here has already been topped in the past, and it has deadwood pieces out on the upper extremities of the canopy. And this one is retrenching, and we can tell that because of the amount of sprouts along the base. People will call those water shoots, sprouts, shoots, things like that. In arborist terms, we call those epicormic buds, or latent bud response, and that's due to some kind of stress or emergency response from the tree. So it's probably not as healthy. It might have some internal decay, which I've already seen, and things like that. So what's going to happen to this tree is it's actually going to die back down and become short eventually. And I recognize this right now, and so we want to deal with this right now before it actually dies up top, because then we don't have as many options to climb or lower pieces like that, as the physics will change on the tree. So what we're going to do to retain this tree rather than remove it is we're actually going to pull it back and cut pieces off and make it shorter. And that's what retrenchment is. The tree just gets shorter, and it has to do with insects and disease issues, but also the lack of effort for the tree to get the heavy water far up in the tree and support those limbs to keep living. Now, addressing the latent buds, the epicormic buds down here, we like those and we want those. That's going to be the new canopy. When we're retrenching an old tree, it's going to get shorter and then re-sprout out. And then we won't cut anything when we're working on the trees until we're done, because we might break a few. So that's the last thing we do. We will prune the ones that get broken or damaged, and then we will slowly pick which ones we want to go where. As where the limbs come out, the sprouts come out, we want to train them to where we want them to go. We probably don't want to train them to go over the house, because that's not going to be good. We want to bring them over here to the east and then slightly to the north, and that will retrain the new canopy. So think about that if you're a municipal manager for Parks and Recs districts, for the county, for public works. We really want to keep these old trees in there. And it's also important to think about when you can leave wildlife habitat when there's no threat or no target. So anyway, we're going to get to working on these, and we'll do a time lapse later on to show exactly what we're doing. It's not always pretty. It's going to look a little weird, but that's when it comes down to educating the clients, which I had a long talk with this client of, it's going to look a little weird, but this is how we're going to save the tree. And she was on board with that. So anyway, let's get started on this tree. So this is where that squirrel went into. And there's the upper deadwood I have to get rid of. So this is going to be expected to be hollow all the way down through here. So what I'd like to do is cut it a couple feet high up here, so that hopefully it's not going to be a hollow cavity down in there, and let a bunch of rain down in there, which if I was living in here I would not want. Not ideal to be climbing on. And then my son goes to school, first grade, right there. So normally I would not leave a 3.5, 4 foot piece of 10-inch deadwood, but there's a squirrel living inside of here. I already saw it go in there, like I said earlier, and from here on out, this hollow spot is just going to balloon open. I can see down in there that it's quite wide right there, so this is not going to fall for 15 years or something like that. So we're just going to leave it. There's no hazard, no risk, wildlife habitat. This is a squirrel nest. So here's how the tree turned out. Now remember, there's 3 trees in here. This one that we are retrenching